right, what is going on, guys? It is Adam, aka Marf, and this is Marfoogle TV, at least 62. And again, the numbers for this have, in some cases, updated to way higher. But to show you what they absolutely knew for a fact was at least 62 people perished. I heard as high as 117. The number has, of course, been edited several times by the news. At least 62 people were perished when an airliner veered off a runway and erupted into a fireball. Now, most of you have already seen this because it has been all over the news. 2 people were rescued, the agency said. The crash occurred as Jeju Air Flight C7C2216, carrying 175 passengers and 6 crew on a flight from the Thai capital of Bangkok, was landing shortly after 9 a.m. Now, it says at least 58 people, not around anymore, have been recovered, but the number is not final. Another fire official told Reuters 2 people were found alive and rescue operations were underway. Now imagine being one of 2 people. Imagine being, I mean, heck, if one of them perishes, imagine being like the only survivor or one of 2 people that survives a crash like that. And I'm sure they're not unscathed. If you saw the actual crash, I don't think that's possible. Authorities were working on to rescue people in the tail section, an airport official told Reuters shortly after the crash. Video shared by local media showed the twin-engine aircraft skidding down the runway with no apparent landing gear before slamming into a wall in an explosion. Now, they said that they had the landing gear malfunction due to a bird strike. And then, of course, they skidded along and it exploded into this huge huge explosion, J.J. Abrams type of thing. It was just unbelievable. And as far as that goes, I almost thought, and I don't know if this is real or not, but during that time period, you got all these posted videos of people looking out the window at a fiery engine. Did anybody get a video out of that plane before it was gone? I don't know. There's so much fake stuff shared now. But what we do know is that the landing gear failed and it skidded down and that they had a supposed bird strike. Now, when I first heard about this, I thought, man, are we going to hear that they say this is some sort of sabotage or somebody sabotaged the landing gear, because this is South Korea. So again, we'll end up following it. If you want to get the rest of the story and the final story, then make sure to subscribe and hit that button. We're going to talk about NATO saying that this looks like war. That was a quote there. And we're going to talk about it because honestly, this is something that right before, about 20 days away, 21 days away from switching power, I think that the sleeves are still full of tricks. It is guaranteed that people are at their calmest right now. Everybody has basically just had a sigh of relief. They think everything is going to be golden, that the world is going to be fixed. They are no longer scared because, frankly, T-Man's coming into the office and he's going to fix everything. Now, I know that many people have faith in that, but right now, I would highly recommend keeping yourself on your tippy toes. We're going to talk about this and much, much more. NATO says we're basically at war. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. Let's get into it. Thousands of British soldiers take part in NATO war games on the border of Ukraine. To go over this story, we're going to bring in my co-host/internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Fugle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So, and remember, before Dex goes into this, we are going to remind you guys, make sure to go to the website. You can find a full bibliography of every single article, tweet, video, picture, document that we have here. For this last year, we have had so many issues, even just getting our show out to people. We are no longer on Rumble, X, DLive. There has been a issue that is unexplainable from our locations. So again, it's been very, very odd, the back end issues we've been having. So again, if you want to support us, share us out. That would be the biggest thing. Share us out with a person that that may not know about us. And again, hate to be like the whole Wikipedia, like, please give us $1.35 to continue service. It has been so bad lately. It's unbelievable. We try really hard. We put a bibliography for every single show, so you have archived news, and it's all aggregated right here. We go over this live with an audience, so you can see the general public really react to it and get a feeling of what is actually BS, what's real, what's Ganda, and what people are thinking. So it's all right there at your fingertips. Dex, let's talk about this. So about 21 days until T-Man. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, real quick before we move to the other article on the bird strike thing. There's a couple other things that are adding mystery to this because of the because they're saying it's a bird strike. Like it doesn't necessarily explain why the landing gear, or doesn't clearly or easily explain why the landing gear didn't go down. They also said they didn't understand why the plane was going so fast, because normally on a landing approach it's going a lot slower. And they also said the flaps weren't down, which normally would have been down and probably wouldn't have been affected by a bird strike. Now, there was, and this is sort of rumored, I don't know if it's a rumor, but it was in the news. They said that one person had made a phone call on the plane saying that there was a bird in the wing. So maybe there is some truth to the bird strike, but it certainly doesn't add up to what actually happened with this plane, which seems, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, you'd expect at least the gear to be down.
Well, and all the analysts that have looked at it, they looked at it and they said, this is not what a pilot would do. Unless maybe they were panicked, maybe something, a heart attack, main pilot, the co-pilot maybe was panicked or did the wrong thing. But everything they looked at, they're like, they would have totally did this or that or this, and they didn't. They did everything wrong. Now, you could say that people make mistakes when something crazy like this happens, but something so drastic like that, something that they've drilled a million times, that they've prepared for this scenario their entire career. I mean, every pilot, I'm sure, thinks about crashing every single day. I mean, it's just like driving a car. If you drive into water, I'm sure the first thing you're prepared to do is smash the window and try to come out, go out the side. So this whole thing, I said it was suspicious, and I believe, and nobody has said this yet, but watch in a week or 2 weeks, they'll go, oh, well, unclassified, this was some sort of sabotage, which brings me to the fact that just a few days after this, 48 hours, within that same 48 hours, they're talking, NATO is saying, oh, this looks like war and these hybrid attacks. Is this a hybrid attack? South Korea is involved with North Korea. North Korea is now fighting with Russia against Ukraine. There's all sorts of 4D chess going on here. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And while you're down there, make sure to check out the link for marfooglenews.com/friends. Our mods are in the chat right now, dropping them in the chat for our awesome mods. They are always doing a great job, from Bobby Sue to Ilea to, of course, Rip Curl, Chance, and Jammer. So make sure to say hello to them. Thousands of British soldiers take part in NATO war games on the border of Ukraine. Just right there, Dex.
Yeah, they're heading into Romania. So they're getting ready to take part in war games in Romania. The soldiers are set to begin arriving in the country. And if you guys remember, Ukraine, the northern area of Romania, borders up against Ukraine there. The 2-month exercise will rehearse the deployment of the new Allied reaction force to counter the Russian threats. So this is it's not just a drill. This is a drill specific to what is actually happening from Russia right now. So you have to remember that when these types of drills go on, when you move troops into place, you also move equipment into place. It's very likely that that stuff will remain in place afterwards. Even if they act like it's a drill and it's going to be over, they're getting prepared for a conflict. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're practicing it, but they also could be preparing for an inevitable date that they have been pushing towards quite vigilantly for the last year now.
And these NATO war games that have been going on, war games or drills, they can always be something else. If you are brand new to our community and you're just kind of opening your eyes, or maybe you've even switched out of a belief you've had for a very long time and now you're kind of just deep diving into everything, I will tell you this, there has been a lot of question about what the hell is really going on with this. What is the overall big goal of the people at the very top of this world? And I say that because it's not just NATO or this group or that group. There's groups that have been meeting every single year that have essentially pull over the entire planet, and everything is interconnected. There is no doubt, absolutely no doubt, that there is some, all of these countries are completely separate. All of these countries have representatives and rich people from almost all of these groups meeting at these world forums, or going to summer camps, or going to builder groups, and they're essentially talking about the plans they have for us. Remember, we're on a different level than them, and by we, I mean almost everyone who is not a billionaire up. They believe that we are kind of taking up space, that we really don't deserve to be here, that our consumption even is just doing damage to the world around them. They literally believe they are better than us in every single way. They believe that the reason they got to the place they are is because they are special, because they are, better than us. And it's crazy to put people into that kind of zone, but that's really how they think. When you have that much money, it is almost impossible to live normal. There's no way around it. You are treated differently. You are pumped up differently. Human beings, in our flaws, treat people that are rich differently. They treat them like celebrities, like they are better than us. And I guarantee you, almost every human being, that goes straight to their head. So it changes people, and it's really a horrible dichotomy, because we are in this horrible situation right now where they want to go to war because it's going to make a ton of money. They also can rearrange all of our laws and really tighten their grip down on us. I don't think it's any doubt with my opinions and some Dex's opinions why all of a sudden there's only issues in the entire country getting restream stuff out from here and going to X. I think X is the big reason why we're having a lot of issues. X, it cannot be controlled as of right now, and they can't stop the messaging of not even us, the audience, everything. They don't want these opinions to be spread all around. They don't want people questioning things, and that's a pretty crazy. We're in a crazy time. These war games could also be a cover for something far, far worse. The West found a miles-long piece of evidence backing its claim that Russia is purposely cutting undersea cables. Now, with everything that's been going on, there's been a lot of these underwater sea cables cut, if not by, they say, by Russia, by China, by fishing boats, by commercial boats with their anchors all the way down. I've said that this looks like practice. Again, I'd love to hear your opinions down below. But it says Western nations have long suspected that Russia has been deliberately severing vital underwater sea cables, but without much to prove it. That may have changed after officials in Finland pointed to an unusually vivid piece of evidence tied to a Russia-linked ship. Think about this. Now, all of a sudden, there's this huge piece of evidence, and it looks like, and it's connected to a Russian ship. Now, the only reason my tin hat, starts buzzing right now is because every other conflict we've ever had, there's been some sort of event that kicks us into a war. Now, this might not seem much at first, but when you start gathering a pit of evidence, when they start putting a file together on why they believe they are starting a conflict or they are trying to do something, that is where you are trying to get and garner public support towards going to war. That is what I believe they are doing with many of these stories. Finnish officials on Sunday said that they found miles and miles of tracks on the bed of the Baltic Sea that indicate a Russia-linked tanker could be responsible for slicing a cluster of valuable data and power cables. Sami Pella, a detective chief inspector of Finland's National Bureau of Investigation, said dragging marks from an aging tanker's anchor had been found beneath the Baltic Sea near the cables. Reuters reported the track is dozens of kilometers in length. Now, this is the same story we've heard many times, that this is done, and they are dragging anchors miles and miles and miles and miles, in some cases hundreds of miles. That doesn't happen on accident. When the first happened, I think one of the first real big stories was between the Taiwanese islands. A smaller one was cut by a Chinese fishing ship. I could be wrong. I do know that there was one also over by Sweden. But it's like when something like this happens, the first time everybody came out and said, no. Experts say boaters wouldn't do this. They wouldn't drag their anchor for 200. You would notice. You would know. Now it's almost on a weekly basis. Dex, I mean, we've covered a bunch of these now, and people are still thinking that this is obviously purposeful, but is that also something we need to look at? Is it meant to look purposeful?
Well, it's very easy for them to use this as on both sides. So from the Russian side, it's very easy, or even China's side, to say, hey, commercial ships, drop your anchors and drag them across these special spots, and we can get a benefit out of it. And then we have plausible deniability. It was just a commercial ship. The captain didn't know what he was doing. The anchor malfunctioned. They weren't paying attention. He was drunk, whatever. At the same time, it's also easy to go back and drag an anchor behind one of these ships and then blame it on them. What kind of forensics is there to say the exact anchor that was there is the one that left that line? Certainly if it broke off and had some sort of serial number that matched up to the ship, then that might make sense. But I don't think that's even the case. But nonetheless,
how
this
are they
could go
doing that?
either way. Yeah, exactly.
Like, we found...
I get it that they can see a track, right? That's probably easy to see with sonar. A long line, track, drag, dredge mark, fine. But anybody could do that with an anchor.
Yeah, and I was thinking, like, no, what are the words that they were using? They said, but without proof. That may have changed after officials in Finland pointed out to an unusually vivid piece of evidence tied to Russia-linked ship. Vivid? What, a track in the dirt? Like, it's water. It's underwater. So, again, right when you drag something, it's going to then fill back in. It's on the bottom of the seabed. So maybe if it was 9 feet exactly wide, maybe only some certain ships have a 9-foot anchor or something like that. Like, maybe you could say something like that. But most of these huge ships have a very similar anchor. Now, I'm not an anchor expert. If you guys are totally anchored up and you've got anchor tattoos on your arm and you're like, hey, I'm all about the anchor. I didn't even serve. I just like anchor tattoos. Then tell me, is there some forensic thing that it could have left behind? Did it drag? And there's a certain part of the baridium table of titanium that doesn't melt and it left chips behind. How do they know this? And the reason why, not because we're like trying to defend Russia, but we also know that there's Fantastic Freddy's, there's these F events that get us into war, and there's usually a reason behind it, right? There's these things that happen. Somebody throws a grenade into here, or a ship painted like the other country does this, and overall the goal was, hey, well, we needed to do this because we couldn't just do it without a reason, and we had good intentions. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. By the way, speaking of which, we have lots of really awesome people in here. Now, since we're over on TV, we can see the chat. Let's pop it up on screen. Hey, nice to see you. By the way, lots of great people. Greg Sparks, nice to see you. Cypher9, nice to see you. Big Ox, nice to see you. Let me pop this over here as well. Shannon Sissel, we've got WIS Jen. Thank you for being here. Wild Iris, hey. Who knows what dreams are going through airwaves? Yeah, who knows? And again, I actually saw something about that, how in the future they want to be able to, or they'll be able to literally put dreams or implant dreams into people's heads. An actual science background that talked about that. Annabor of Good Enough Homestead. Hey, nice to see some homesteads in here. I'm hoping that your homesteads are getting prepped up. Randy Man, he an anchor baby. And then Morgan Polsky, what's going on? From Chino Valley, Arizona. If you can, do a quick roll call. Scaremongering, SDRC. Do you think it is scaremongering? As far as what's going on? Or you think with the anchor stuff? Or are you saying we're scaremongering? Because, again, I think we are the opposite. And I think we have been kind of the antithesis of that for a long time. We've pointed out when not to be scared. We don't put out dates. We don't say, hey, on the 4th, the world is going to end. We don't just make up, somebody goes, oh, they're loading up nukes into a mountain and you should freak out right now. We don't do that. But what I will say is I do believe something is about to go down. And the reason why I have pointed out many times, and we've shown you and we've archived it, you can see the patterns. When you watch MSM for this long, then you can really see when things are about to go down, and it's predicted. Dex, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. NATO is definitely scaremongering right now all over Europe. All of these stories, all of this is just a constant barrage of point the finger at Russia, so that we can all get scared of this potential bad threat of this massive war that's going to come from Russia, because that's what they're trying to drum up. They want, the war machine wants the war. Otherwise, it can't feed the machine. And it's definitely, and that's why you have to question it. You certainly have to. These anchors are huge, and they will leave a massive trench in the ground. I mean, they gotta hold the giant tanker in place. They're huge. So, but how do you prove that it's from that ship? Just because that ship traveled that same direction doesn't mean another ship couldn't have done it right behind it to frame it. And that's the whole point. Is we won't know for sure if they did it just off of a track in the sand. Maybe we'll know if there's some damage or some evidence on the ship itself, but just a track in the sand doesn't prove much.
And by the way, SDRC says dream implantation is scaremongering. It says it would need to be trained per individual. No, well, so here, I don't know what you may have seen something as well along those lines. But what I will say is there's certain things that could be done with brainwaves. As far as being, this is something that's been talked about too. And in fact, a lot of our audience believes that something like this could actually already be going on. They've had what is that? Dex, do you remember what it was called? The Voice of God. It was like something to skull technology or something like that. But in theory, there's ways that they could end up putting even thoughts into your brain. They can now supposedly start to read thoughts from outside of your brain. You can actually measure our thoughts from outside of our brain already. They have been for a long time, for years and years. They can actually see when we think, because it creates an electrical signal. So they can measure it from outside of your head. So I wonder about that. As far as, I'm not trying to scare anybody that you'll get dreams implanted, but again, I think that is what they're going to be telling us that's going to be possible in the future. Do you guys think we will actually have the ability to implant dreams into somebody's head? There's obviously been a lot of predictive programming as far as movies goes. All right, and then before moving on, make sure to go check out EMP Shield. putting aside, so we have very few affiliate rollover. We don't change affiliates every week. We don't change from this to that to this to that to this to that, or have some company or multi-channel network deciding what we're selling. We have picked each one of the affiliates that we have on this show because we believe that they will end up saving a life or making your life more comfortable. There's probably better affiliates that would help us make more money. But as far as EMP Shield, I believe that people will actually be able to get home to their families or be able to get out to bug out. I do believe that EMP Shield will end up helping people when we do have a huge, massive disaster, or if the power grid goes down. EMP Shield is a good company run by good people. Even the people that hand make them out of Kansas, they are good people. So again, EMP Shield is the same company that's now outfitted agencies like DHS, DOD, and the DEMSA team. You guys have all heard that. But one thing to know is that a lot of people have all of a sudden said, oh, well, T-Man's going to be in office. And people really do think that it's all going to be good. Well, there is no movement forward in, or at least at a snail's pace, that executive order in 2018 that he put in his last term in office. That is still not done and still almost at all enforced. So even if T-Man gets into office and says, I'm going to fix all of this, it's a bureaucracy. And we've all seen how absolutely horrid our bureaucracy is here. This is one of the easiest ways to take us down. You do a EMP over the middle of the country, you've knocked down our entire grid. They say 90% of us would perish, and this is not something that's knocking it down for a few minutes and then we boot back up like a computer. It would knock out transformers that take 9 months to make. And they're not built here, they're made overseas, and that would be assuming if we still have a supply chain after everything falls apart to be able to get it into place and make it for each location. Only 9 transformers would have to be knocked out, and these are the major big ones. Only 9 in a study by the NERC would be required to knock down every single grid across the entire grid across the country. So with this, I think that this should be required by law by car makers, but it's not to put in all new cars. I think it should be required by law in code for houses, or even if you rent a house, you have to put this in. If you consider all the stupid things they require to be in a house that you rent, I think that you should have this in there. marfooglenews.com/EMP /EMP, and make sure to use the code MARF. You'll get $50 off per device, and that's on top of all of the other sales. But I just want to point out, if you think that things are just going to be fixed, I will refer back to that 2018 EMP executive order and go look it up, how far that's moved. It's pretty alarming when we're sending $50 billion, $100 billion, $900 billion, whatever billion dollars to other countries, and those countries are literally giving our money to other countries when we don't even have our grid secure. It's one of the first things that they would do is knock out our power, knock down our communications, and look at what they're doing. They're cutting underwater sea cables. They're practicing. They are launching things into space specifically to target our satellites. They're giving Congress people satellite phones and coming up with plans just in case the entire cell phone network goes down, yet they're telling us everything is okay, everything is fine. Meanwhile, people like Zuckerberg are making $270 million bunker mansions that are absolutely in the know. So it's up to you. Do you want to be able to get home to your family? Do you want to be able to get your family out of there? It's up to you. marfooglenews.com/EMP, and make sure to use the code MARF. I hope none of this ever happens, but again, remember this, that also protects you against CMEs or a Carrington level event from the sun, which will happen. That's not a scary, oh, what if? That is a when. And if we are set up by then, I hope we are, then good. But if not, right now we are vulnerable to that. And then Russia's hybrid attacks against NATO look like war, and allies must draw red lines. The lines here, they keep saying the same messaging, and from Germany to France to Finland to Sweden to all these countries are preparing their people. Meanwhile, here in the United States, we're the baddest, we're the toughest, and we're untouchable. Our citizens are being told, well, we're America and nobody can touch us. Meanwhile, over the last 4 years, we've had millions flood in through our south, many of them buzz cut and camoed out. We've also had all of our bases have one thing or another happen right around them. Land bought, property bought right next to them and across the street. Meanwhile, all of this is going down, and they're basically saying that it looks like war. Dex, do you want to talk about this? And I'm actually going to grab something real quick. So if you want to go over Russia's hybrid attacks, and NATO direct quote, saying that this looks like war.
Yeah, it looks like war. That's what they want us to know. They say the Allies need to draw red lines now. So Russia is accused of a campaign of so-called hybrid attacks. This is not the first time we've heard this terminology. They've been trying to push this quite a bit, which are designed to sit in what's called the gray zone, under the threshold of conventional war. And it's obviously something that Moscow is denying. Russia's unconventional attacks against NATO look like war, and allies must draw new red lines. Gabrielas Landsberg, who stepped down from the foreign minister of Lithuania earlier this month after 4 years in the post, said that he did not believe the alliance was responding with sufficient speed and urgency to the threat. Moscow is accused of a campaign of these attacks designed to sort of not get them in the trouble of being actually in war, but actually causing sabotage, whether it's cutting the undersea cables, as we just talked about, the cyber hacks, the interference with the selection processes that are going on there, and then, of course, the plots that they've put out to take out certain individuals. Of course, the Kremlin denies any of this stuff, but we're starting to see more of I would call it more like a campaign of building up as many of these possible scenarios, whether it's, DHL airplanes that might have sabotage in them, causing them to crash into cities, to the internet cables being cut in the oceans, to all of these different things. They're trying to package it all up so that we, the public, feel like, oh yeah, this is big bad Russia and we should be doing something again. And that's what they're suggesting, is that NATO needs to consider this an act of war. He warned that there are even possibilities of an act of Russian hybrid warfare being sufficiently harmful that it could prompt allies to invoke Article 5 response. So that is, the Article 5 is when one NATO nation is attacked, then they all have to respond and support that nation. So from my perspective, it does look like war, the Lithuanian politician said. So Russians are very good at sensing weakness or geopolitical vacuum. So if there's no pushback, they will just creep on and continue their activity. So you can see this massive push, again, as we keep talking about and describing what NATO is trying to tell the West or the public, is that there's this big bad war coming.
Now, mind you, with this, it's like everybody is now at ease because they believe, oh, Trump is coming in and he's going to fix it all. Now, I do believe that a lot of the things that are being said are awesome. RFK coming in and trying to fix our health, and all of the names, the famous farmer coming in and looking at the different agricultural things that are going on. The Doge going in and trying to cut out all of the inefficiencies and save money and all of this stuff. I mean, right now we're paying exorbitant, and I just made a word, exorbitant prices for almost everything. At the same time, we can barely live right now, especially here in Washington. I'm in the worst place out of almost the whole country, besides I think New York and Hawaii. But right now, it's like people are so high on hope that this is going to work, but it's a bureaucracy. It's literally going to be stopped up. People think that there's no rhinos right now. If you're on the right side of things, you don't think that these people aren't snakes, that they're not going to take a $2 million check or a huge chunk of money in an offshore account, or money put into one of their LLC accounts and not flip on a dime. It's what happened last time with some of the most ardent people, and that's why I'm worried about this, is they're telling us war, 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 war. you keep hearing that T-Man's going to take us out of this. That could actually be the thing that triggers a lot of this stuff to go down. And say if we did pull out, they do go to war, they then would drag us back in a couple years, because then there would be some sort of manufactured or real threat to the United States. Dex, go ahead.
Well, and it gets even worse than just suggesting that we may be at war, but they're also now saying, and this is a quote, that they should and that we have a general NATO strategy that would be able to draw red lines and suggest retaliation. So he is saying that any of these acts that they keep seeing, whether it's like the DHL plane or the cables cut, that they should start retaliating for these. And that's a big escalation when you start to think about that. What is it going to look like if NATO starts retaliating or performing an action or an event back to Russia, whether it be like kind or not?
And whether they have proof of it being them or not. So say the dragging of the anchor, they could perceive, all it would have to be is a perceived threat and agreed upon with multiple members in NATO, and they could say, hey, this is something that they're doing and we believe this is them. They go out in front of them, they go, okay, well, we need to come up with some sort of response. Remember, there's motive. There's motive here to start a war. You don't have to defend Russia or say that Russia's not the bad guy. Russia's not great, especially Putin, ex-KGB. Does anybody trust Putin directly? If you do, I would highly look into that. But as far as RGov is no longer even just RGov. RGov is a set of people that almost every one of them has a connection with the military-industrial complex. It is a revolving door of people that go out from the government into military-industrial complex, or military-industrial complex into the government. Or they go into the third one, which is medical, which we saw what the medical world could do to the entire planet. You remember being locked down? You probably do, because all but 6 countries really followed the rules on that. And all 6 of those countries had their leaders unexpectedly changed, or perished, or had an accident, or had high blood pressure, or had heads removed, whatever. It doesn't matter. We don't need to talk about that unfortunate truth. That's a good one. The Unfortunate Truth, right? That'll be a good documentary. But yeah, there's motive. There's absolutely motive to get these wars started. And that's why I think that everybody's high on hope, but they could make it so in the next 20 days, they set up something where T-Man is in a corner. Or they possibly there could be a fake event. Who knows who does it, which 3-letter agency does it, or 6-letter agency, or whatever agency. They could do one event. Remember that one event put streets of the entire country and the world into riots. One police officer and one citizen put everybody in chaos. I can speak to this. I walked through Chaz. I live in Seattle. I was able to walk through an area that was literally taken over. They took over a police station in a United States city and closed off a block, and people literally blocked it out with assault rifles. The same people that don't believe in the Second Amendment were blocking out this area with assault rifles, and they took it over for weeks on end. It's like, how does this happen? How does anything that has happened in the last couple years happen? Well, I'll tell you what, almost everything that has been something that we thought could never happen. So when are you going to stop thinking this can't happen, or no, that's too far-fetched to happen? How many far-fetched things keep happening? We didn't think, oh, well, they wouldn't try to, make it look so obvious that they're trying to take out our, the top guy. He literally looked at a chart about the people coming in, which is another huge red flag, and that saved his life. And whether you like him or absolutely hate our next prez, there's something at play here that's bigger than any one of us could even imagine. And I'm sure that if any of us imagined too closely, we won't be around anymore. So yeah, like this whole NATO thing, I would pay heavy attention, because NATO is going to be what starts this conflict, whether it is with Russia or if it's within the Asian NATO sector with South Korea, Japan, or the Philippines, or something in that area. Something is going to happen here, and it's going to start off a massive war. It's not about throwing stuff to the wall and seeing what will stick. That's what people think when you, if somebody calls out World War III, eventually it will happen. No, you can almost see exactly what will happen, and you can see it being put together over years and years. This isn't a wedding. A wedding takes 3 or 4 months to plan. A world takeover takes decades, and it's been happening for a very long time. If you disagree, let me know what you think. Let me know in the comments down below. Speaking of which, in the comments, hey, by the way, thank you. Rapture Ready, thank you for becoming a member again. Thank you for rejoining. Karen Myers, I appreciate that. Angela Perfelli just hit 7 months. Kimberly, Tammy Lee, Randy Holcomb, thank you. Chris Strom, thank you. I appreciate that. Larry Powell, thank you for being a member. I appreciate that. And then M. St. G, thank you for your support on the last show. Juby Joe, thank you for the support on the last show. And then Elisa Borden, thank you for the super chat in the beginning of the show. I appreciate that. Thank you for supporting Independent. Thank you for the super sticker. Cat Philosopher, thank you for gifting memberships this month. And then thank you, Stephen McMahon, for your attendance and just showing up and being an awesome person. And Carlton Sutton, thank you as well. Make sure to also thank your mods. We've currently got some very awesome people in chat, so make sure to drop an M in there again for your mods. All right. And what do you think about this whole situation? Let us know either in the chat or in the comments if you're watching the replay. North Korea unveils advanced frigate design, likely equipped with guided missiles. Now, how they're coming out with these advanced frigates and other things is a question that probably is easily answered. Either China or Russia, North Korea has been sending thousands and thousands of containers of something that they do manufacture and that they do have a plethora of, which is artillery shells and ammunition. Now they're starting to get a favor back. They are also sending their physical people. They're like, hey, here's some stuff for the wood chipper. Here's 10,000 troops. Here's 20,000 troops. In the summer of 2023, Korea unveiled a cruise missile armed corvette, marking a significant development in its naval capabilities. Now, just days before the start of 2025, the country has revealed a new frigate design with double the displacement of the 1,500-ton Amnok-class corvette and boasting advanced features. Footage aired by state media Korean Central Television, or KCTV, included 4 photographs showing the supreme leader of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, Kim Jong-un, construction at the Nampo shipyard for the Korean People's Navy. It said that based on the images, the new vessel appears to incorporate cutting-edge technology such as fixed panel radars integrated into its superstructure and a vertical launching system, or a VLS, capable of deploying either cruise missiles or anti-aircraft guided missiles. Furthermore, similar to the Amnok-class corvette, significant efforts are being made to minimize the radar cross-section as much as possible. Forward of the bridge, there are 2 openings, a smaller one at the bow and likely designed for a naval weapon, and a larger one directly in front of the superstructure, potentially intended to accommodate a number of vertically launched missiles for defensive or offensive purposes. The small openings in the superstructure suggest that the installation of the fixed radar panels for surveillance and or missile guidance, these feature closely resemble the configuration of the unfinished Project 20386 Corvette for the Russian Navy. Now, you always have to question everything and just pour a cup of salt on almost everything, But I do believe this because North Korean soldiers are perishing in Russia. Russia is using them supposedly as these frontline wood chipper, just throw them in and let them push as hard as they can. They're expendable. And in return, they're getting technology. They're getting military advancements. Dex, we think of North Korea as so backwards that, they have to do black market stuff. They have to send their people outside of the country to do crappy construction jobs to make money. At least if you followed how they make money, they have to do almost everything with the black market. People think of them as always on the edge of just, just completely dissolving. Their people are starving. They've got fake storefronts. They're just absolutely in the horrid place. Well, now they're getting money in. They're trading people for advanced technology, and they're talking about war with South Korea.
I mean, Room 39 is real. If you guys don't know what that is, look it up. That's their entire part of their organization that seeks to maintain, a foreign currency slush fund for the country's leaders, and performing activities and doing all sorts of things, whether it be crypto, stealing and hacking, to, illegal trades and stuff to bring money into the country. But yeah, this whole, you gotta know this is coming from Russia. This is everything they've done with Russia, as far as helping them, all the recent meetings and the giving of troops, all of that is absolutely what's going on and why they're getting more and more advanced capabilities.
And what do you think it will look like the more stuff that they end up getting? What is their end-all goal? Well, they would like to take South Korea back. I have said 1,000 times over, and people are probably getting tired of it, I believe that North Korea will be the trigger to a bigger weapon. You can go back years, and I believe this because it is the perfect puppet. Kim Jong-un is the perfect fear puppet. It's the perfect, if you want a fearmonger, Kim Jong-un's perfect. Everyone is scared of Kim Jong-un and North Korea. I know a lot of you probably laugh at him, but in general, when the world went on this cycle, the MSM went on this cycle of saying that he's launching nukes and nukes and nukes, there's nobody that probably didn't have a thought in the back of their head that said, hey, this is really crazy. Especially when T-Man, our next president and former president, when he was in these back and forths with Kim Jong-un, it was getting absolutely insane. Now, with all of the Kim Jong-un stuff where he potentially died and he potentially he had surgery on his brain, and then he was vegetable, then he perished, then he was totally okay, and then his sister started talking. I think they are a puppet country. I think that they are being used, and at any time we could see a tactical nuke or an AI video of a tactical nuke or a regular nuke go off, a city's destroyed, and then all of a sudden everybody is bloodshot in the eyes, wants to go to war. People are begging for it instead of people going, well, we don't want war and don't cause World War III. People will be cheering for it. People will be going, yay, yay, yay to war. And that would only happen if something really horrendous happens to where everyone agrees we've got to take North Korea out. Well, then you get Russia, then you get this, and you get that, and then you get China, you get this, you get the Middle East, you get Iran. All of a sudden, we're in a world war, and it happens step by step to the point where all of a sudden, all of these countries are at war, and they don't even declare it a world war until after in history books. If you didn't know, they didn't call it World War right at the beginning of World War II. It was the first public mention didn't happen for a couple years, because when you lived through World War II, it was happening just like it is now, where it's one thing at a time and one section at a time. And then when you look back at it, you go, oh my gosh, there was war here, war here, war here, war here. When it will really affect the most people, I believe, is when either an attack happens on the United States or we have a draft, which you can see every other major country when they went to war in recent times, they've all had a draft. We will have a draft your young ones, even possibly my daughter, will be drafted. She's 18 now, so she's totally draftable if they change the draft, which they've been trying to do. They've been talking about adding women to the draft for years now, and it has tried to be put in 2 of the big omnibus things that have been attempted. So what do you guys think about North Korea? Let me know in the comments down below. And then Elon Musk is a national security risk. Retired Army general sounds alarm on scathing New York Times op-ed. Dex, there's no surprise that this is out of New York Times saying that he is a national security risk. I can't stand this news cycle.
Well, there is a decent point here, but it's obvious where they're going with this. But they're basically trying to, and let me just tell you who it is. It's retired Lieutenant General Russell L. Honore. He's sounding the alarm on Elon Musk's potential security risk, especially with his newfound role with the Doge. So, but basically, what they're digging at here is the fact that Musk's business ventures are heavily reliant on China. They say he borrowed $1.4 billion from banks controlled by Chinese governments to help build Tesla Shanghai Gigafactory, which, by the way, that would make sense. If you're building business in China, you would use Chinese funding and banking to build that. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. It is what it is. But the thing he goes on to talk more specifically about, that they're responsible for more than half of Tesla's global deliveries. Now, that's an important thing to think about. Tesla is a big company, a big chunk of his pocketbook, and half of Tesla's sales are in China. So he is really in bed with China. Not only is he in bed with the banking there for building his gigafactory, he's in bed just financially from selling cars there. He then goes on to remind people that China does not tend to give things away. The country's laws stipulate that the Communist Party can demand intelligence from any company doing business in China. It's an exchange for participating in the country's markets. So in a nutshell, that is the way they're sort of trying to say, hey, look, Elon is a risk because he has such a tie financially to China, and that it's going to be difficult to think that he would give that up, or that couldn't play a role in his decision making as it relates to the potential needs from China.
Now, they also put the fact that Mr. Musk spent $250 million, $250 million to help put T-Man in office to give the incoming White House the license to look the other way at the national security risk he may pose. That's also a good point there, too. Now, I have talked about this a long time, that his second biggest factory is in China. Now, let me ask you this. If you were an American leader and you're looking at China, what would you want for China? Would you want them to basically be a closed, censored country? Or if you wanted to hurt that country, Dex, would you want the Chinese to have free speech if you wanted to hurt the Chinese government? Would you want people being able to say whatever they want to say, to be able to whistle blow and things like this, if you wanted to hurt the Chinese government?
Yeah, I mean, clearly China is not in favor of that, of free speech, right?
Not in their own country.
Correct.
But that's where the devil's advocate is, and I'm not saying that that's what's going on here, but what if what if there is some sort of point there, and in the devil's advocate world here, you look at it and go, okay, so there is a reason there. Is Elon, because Elon is one of the biggest proponent of free speech, and he's saying, nope, all of these things. And what it has done is that it has hurt our own gov. That's for sure. Because all the people on Twitter being able to share whatever the heck, free speech really has brought out a lot of truth, and people are able to basically dissent. Also, there's been some nasty stuff that I have actually seen, too, that has come out of it, too. There's people that are true, people that are the R word, that don't like people of other kinds of people. And I guess the main point in a lot of people have argued is like, well, wouldn't you rather have that person say it out loud so you know who they are than secretly doing it and meeting somewhere in the bushes and secretly being that horrible person? I've agreed with that. I would rather have somebody have a sign on their door saying I don't like these people and blah blah blah, so you know where they're at, instead of them riding on the bus next to you and you'll never know. If they want to get it tattooed on their head that they're the R word, go ahead. Because as much as they make the issue that everyone is the R word, we're all about race and this and that, we're not. But there are those people out there. There are people that are even, I think, in some cases being brainwashed to be overly R word, right? But in this case, would you, if you were trying to hurt the U.S. Gov and you were another entity, would you want us to have free speech, or would you want us to be censored to not say anything bad about the U.S. Gov? Whereas the Chinese government, you can't say anything bad, to the point where if they protest, they put up a white piece of paper. They can't say nothing bad about the U.S. or the Chinese government. Neither can Russia. Russia can't do the same thing. But would they want us to have free speech? It's just a different way of looking at it. It is crazy how much money is coming still from China. Is Elon at some point? Here's the other kicker. What if Elon goes, you know what, I'm closing my Chinese factory. I don't believe what China is doing. We're going to lose. What if he gets to a certain point where he goes, I'm not going to ship Teslas to China anymore. I'm no longer doing it. And then how is he going to spend all this money with T-Man, and then T-Man still continues to put all these tariffs? Now all of a sudden T-Man has said, hey, I'm okay with TikTok. He goes, I have a special place in my heart for TikTok. It seems like a lot of these young people on TikTok are the reason why I won. So I don't know. There's some weird stuff going on here. And it makes the small part of a lot of us that questions absolutely everything, no matter what we think. We're not just drones that go, I believe in this no matter what. You have to question everything. And you hope for the best. You prepare for the worst. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your opinion on it. And I know you can get in some pretty big arguments even over people like Elon, because I do believe Elon's getting attacked by all of the media right now. But at the same time, there's some pretty valid stuff there that even my mods, like able-bodied, have pointed out. There have been people that have been against certain people like Elon for the entire time. It goes back to, like, can anybody be that rich and actually be an okay person? Like, they could look cool, they can ride a surfboard with an American flag like Zuckerberg, but they also then help the gov spy on us through Facebook, right? So, is there any actually good people up there at the very, 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 very top? Wages World says, Happy New Year's. Hey, Happy New Year's to you too. And it is East Coast time after midnight. It is officially New Year's Eve in New York. So happy New Year's Eve to many of you, and I hope that all of you have an awesome night. It is TBD, to be decided about tomorrow. So if you want to watch, I wouldn't expect a 7 o'clock show. I guarantee there's not going to be a 7 o'clock show. We also don't know what actual news will happen tomorrow. Usually New Year's Eve, Christmas Eve, these kind of days, they will literally not put anything out. So we don't even know if there will be any news, because the MSM wants you to be calm and collected, so you spend money on, the corporations. What do you think about this op-ed? Let me know in the comments down below. Germany accuses Elon Musk of trying to interfere in its national process of picking a prez. This is, or prime minister, I don't know which Germany does, right? Dex, do you want to go over this one too? This is right hand in hand.
Yeah, so the German government officials accused Tesla founder Elon Musk on Monday of attempting to interfere with the country's upcoming parliamentary selections on behalf of the country's far right edge of their spectrum there, citing recent social media posts and weekend op-ed doubling down on his endorsement. So he has been endorsing a group called the Bill for the German Alternative for Germany, or also known as AFD. And I think I even saw a tweet about it from him before the show earlier today. regarding this. So he has been pushing it really hard. Um, Now, of course, just like the party here in America that he was supporting, they would constantly refer to them as, neo extreme, you know what I'm talking about, and, paint that picture as everybody was that. That's the same picture they're painting of this over there. They use the exact same terminology. So, on one hand, you can sort of say, well, okay, it's just the same old MO, the same playbook from the media in Germany, and the people that are upset about the hay that's getting made, and they're also probably scared because they saw what turnout and what effect potentially they're suggesting Elon had for what happened here in America. So that's the story, but again, the headline is more salacious than it is, but it's also indicative of what you're seeing with this divide at the upper end of the I don't want to call it elite, but whether it's the government power, the power of the money, etc. It's like you've got some that are you've got a whole lot that are on one side, and then you've got some people like Elon and others that are on an opposite side, and it seems like there's even a war at the very top.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a conflict at the top of these people fighting each other. You just wonder, like, at the root of all of these, this group versus that group or this, is there even a good group? Is there a good versus evil? Or is it slightly evil versus more evil? Is it evil versus demonic? Demonic versus werewolves? I don't know. But at this point, we don't know what the heck is going on. By the way, I just saw this. Please note platform manipulation by buying large follower accounts, then using them to push paid narrative scams will result in annihilation of those accounts. More on if a crime is involved, X will prosecute to the full extent. What are they talking about? Harkits. I have heard of that. It says it turns out that the community notes X accounts are currently being run by a user Harkits. 2025 will be way more. By the way, if you haven't seen that that video of the time lapse over the years of how many launches they've been doing, SpaceX has been launching just insane amounts of stuff into space, and a lot of these are top secret payloads. He also gets so many government. How do you have a company that has so much business with China and then at the same time have so many contracts with official U.S. government agencies? It just, everything seems so weird in this world that we are in right now. But yeah, a lot of people are excited because, I mean, this guy is, he's saying he's going to get us to Mars. I mean, that of course is a huge thing for a lot of people. Being able to explore the universe. I mean, every Star Wars Trekkie fan, that's a huge deal. And that's what 95% is. If you're not a Star Wars fan, you're usually a Trekkie, or vice versa, or Battlestar Galactica or whatever. So yeah, it's easy to want to root this on, but I look at it the other way too, because I'm a big fan of all of this too. Neuralink, I think, is scary. Downloading your brain, the immortality through that, and then AI, Grok, all of this stuff is extremely scary to me. What do you guys think about it? Dex, go ahead.
Well, it's funny. He does have a whole lot of power and contracts with launching space equipment, not only for himself but for the government. But at the same time, like, look, it's an open market, right? And it's not like it's one group, NASA, right, that we used to have. It's now an open market where anybody can do it, and he's the only one that's really doing it When I say doing it, I mean like it's like Ford and no one else, right? There's a whole bunch of people trying to make cars, but Henry Ford was just cranking them out like crazy. Well, Elon is, cranking out the rockets, and they work, and they're cheap, and they're simple, and they work every time. And you got Boeing, the behemoth, comes along and can't even launch astronauts in space without them getting stuck for a year, which is unfortunate for them. So, on one hand, it's like, well, you got to understand, it makes economical sense why he has all these deals, but then you got to question it. It's not just because he's the chosen one, because he's not the only one who built rockets. It's an entire, thousands and thousands of people that did it that are smarter than him. He's probably not the genius actually building the actual rocket. He was just the smart person to align a bunch of people and the right people behind this need that he saw coming, especially from the U.S. government. So I don't know. That's my little, soapbox for him. I'm not necessarily, pro Elon or anti Elon. I just sort of like to look at it and question it from all angles. But I totally understand why the government they can't survive without him right now, because he's got the only ticket in town.
Look at this graph that he posted. Party affiliation. Live the TikTok posted this, and it shows. That's a crazy number. Over from 1971 to 2022, only 3.4% of journalists represent as Republican, 51% independent, 36%, which I believe since 1982 is the highest ever, and then 8.5% were other, right? Basically that 51.7 or 8.5, I don't truly believe those are independents. Those are probably people that are in the closet. They don't want to say what their political affiliation is, because you get raked over the coals if you do at this point. I personally believe that everybody here, including if you are on the left or the right, should be getting along just like we did 10, 15 years ago, where you could talk and say, hey, I picked this guy for prez. Oh, really? I hate that guy. I think he's a complete jack. But I totally picked the other guy. Oh, ha, ha, ha. Oh, did you see the game? And you continued. Now, essentially, if you say you pick the other person, you strangulate them and you essentially disown them. That's general rule of thumb. I mean, you can't talk to somebody that picked the opposite person. Right, Dex? I mean, like, who does that? They think differently, right? You can't be friends with people that think different. That's conformist, right?
No, we need everybody divided.
Yes.
Division is the perfect solution.
Yes. Oh, I love being divided. I'm like a math guy, so I just divide, Even the divide symbol is just something special about those two floors stacked on top of each other. You know what I mean?
And you got to keep it binary, because it's always easy when it's binary.
Oh, yeah. Bi and anary, like a canary in the coal mine. Binary in the coal mine. You know what I'm saying? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Bust through a wall like Kool-Aid, baby. But just don't drink it. All right. And back to the news. We're going to talk about China hacked the Treasury Department. But before we do, make sure to go check out Jace Medical if you haven't already. Again, this is a service that you can actually get yourself a kit of all of the most commonly prescribed antibiotics. Now, whatever your personal thoughts on medication or the big farm in the sky owned by the rock-colored black, that's up to you. But I would say this. There are certain things that pretty much everybody agrees are good to have on hand. One of those things is antibiotics. Most of these antibiotics are made in China, which is very sad. 97% of all of the pharmaceutical ingredients are controlled by them. So in the event of a conflict or any kind of thing like this where the supply chain breaks down, it is going to be a disaster. One thing that you should have on hand is antibiotics. And sadly, if we don't have a pharmacy, if we don't have hospitals to go to, that is one of the first things that will break down. So again, go over to marfooglenews.com/Jace. This is an easy telehealth appointment you can do from your phone, tablet, or computer from the comfort of your couch, and you can get yourself shipped to your door by talking to that, again, board-certified doctor. So it's a very easy service. That is called the JACE case. You can actually add things like albuterol or emergency breathers. I know more than one time in my life where if I didn't have an albuterol breather, I could have not been here. So something like that may be, now I'm luckily, I grew out of it. I only needed it once as an adult. But there has been a time where I needed it as an adult, and it's very, very scary to not have one. So make sure to, that's probably because my mom chain smoked like like fish breathes air in a tiny camper, but most of our parents did. So if you are one like me, make sure to go check that out. marfooglenews.com/Jase, Jase, and make sure to use the code MARF. That will save you not only money, but it will also help our independent channel at the same time, because we are trying to represent this square place with the behemoth of the MSM breathing down our necks. So go check it out, marfooglenews.com/Jase, and you'll also be helping us out at the same time. Dex, let's go over China hacked the Treasury Department in major breach. What the beep?
I mean, yeah, this is huge. We don't know the true extent of it. They haven't even told us what the time frame is, too. That's kind of the scary part. But this fact that the breach has come out from the White House saying that this happened, and the administration had announced it on Monday. We did do a short over this, so make sure you go share that. It's a really super short and easy to share with your friends and families. Perfect way to introduce them to the Foogle fam. So go find that video over on Marfoogle News and share it. But look, there will be more information about this coming out when they do an update to Congress. And that'll probably give us things like the dates, what exactly happened. But for now, they're saying they went in, and it looks like espionage. They went into terminals and workstations they were trying to gain access to get information. It wasn't like they didn't suspect that they were trying to lay sort of the Trojan horse behind the network to come in and roll out an attack later, like we've seen in the networks. We talked a couple years ago about those threats they found where they potentially backdoored into the networks to lay hidden traps. And we've talked just recently in the last month about even the feds coming out saying stop using your cell phones to talk to one another unless you're on secure lines, either using Apple to Apple, Android to Android, or use a third-party secure tool, because China has basically infiltrated all of our telecommunications for the purposes of being able to get to the open data, like the phone calls and the text messages, and they can siphon and pull all that information. Of course, you're probably thinking, I don't care what they hear me talk about, and then maybe that's true, but maybe it's not if they build a profile on you and use that for the future when something bigger happens, like a takeover of America. And what does it mean when they start knowing and putting all the information they have with all the DNA information they have against us, right? That could be a scary thought when you think about how much information you actually put out in your conversations with your friends and family. Tells a lot about you. But this hack specifically in the Treasury, lots of different angles here. There could be information there that's being used to blackmail the government or public officials, as far as like not, they'll hold information and say, hey, we know the secrets now and you got to do what we want you to do because you don't want the public to know, or we'll release it. It could be as simple as them trying to find ways to prevent or get around sanctions, because the information they could have gotten access to here would be very insightful around how the Treasury Department sanctioned and stopped the money flow with Russia. And we know that sanctions is a big deal for China. They have a huge organization they put together. They spent a lot of money this last year trying to invest heavily on coming up with a strategy and how to deal with pending sanctions, because they expect it to happen when they invade Taiwan.
What if they find, and this is something I forgot during our short, what if they, well, one thing, they could be using all of the information they're putting into an AI. They could be putting financial information, anything from the telecommunications firms from that previous one. They could be loading that up into AI. They could be blackmailing the government on, what if they found out, oh, here's a check to, this group or that group? What if there's notes on the back end how they paid somebody to try to take out a certain person a few months back, right? What if there's money to a certain group that's changed the world? What if there's a check or money that was paid to a certain 3-letter agency for this or that, or secret monies to all these black projects? What if they ended up finding out something about all the black projects and found out where money went? What if it's so egregious what the U.S. did that if everybody found out, it would be instant civil conflict, like that kind of thing? Like, what if it just leaked out that all of these different attempts on people were actually the U.S. or something? There's a million different things. There's tons of ops that are going on all the time. And I bet you there's some things in our closet that if the general public knew, we would be so absolutely, lit on fire that people would go nuts in the streets. What if there's something like that? Also, another thing, too, is just they're in every one of these systems. They've basically told us they're in our telecommunications, they're in our power, they're in all of this, and people are still not thinking maybe there's something planned for the USA. Get ready. Don't depend on some magical scenario that's going to happen in exactly 21 days. Realize that they might try something so egregious that in 21 days, he puts all this stuff into play and he wants to save the world. But is that enough? Will there be rhinos? Will there be millions and millions of dollars going into different pockets to screw everything they are trying to do? Or they even go further than that and they try a third attempt, a fourth attempt, a fifth attempt. And by they, who knows who they are? But I will say this. The most unexpected thing and the thing that you never thought was going to happen, it's happened time and time again. Murphy's Law. So thank you, Mary Bourne. I appreciate that. And then thank you, Carrie Ray. 14 months as a member, says Happy New Year's all. Much love. Well, hey, thank you. And I appreciate that. Thank you, Wages, again, for the Happy New Year's. And thank you, Elisa Borden. I believe you are a top supporter tonight. Thank you. M. St. G, again, thank you. And love all of you guys. Make sure to go check out that short. If you want to watch that short and you're still here, first of all, thanks for watching the whole video. Second of all, click right here and you'll get to the next short. You'll be able to get to that. Thank you, Dex, for all of your service tonight. I appreciate you.
Much love. Great job, brother.
And thank you to the friends and mods of Marfoogle. Make sure to go check out all of your awesome mods. From Bobby Sue, Ilea, RGL, Rip Curl, of course, Jammer, Chance, all of the greats. Wages, of course, is covering all of the crazy solar events. He's been just kicking butt over there, so make sure to go subscribe. All right, you guys, have a great Happy New Year's. And again, to be decided on what happens tomorrow. It really depends on the news cycle. If it is a holiday or something like that and there's almost virtually nothing of substance, we're not just going to put out something just to put out something. Most of the time, this channel is reacting to something that we believe people should know about. If there's nothing that we believe you should know about, then we're not just going to get up and go, oh, they put speed bumps in over on 4th Avenue. I just saw something on local news where they said that some guy threw a sandwich at a subway thing, and they devoted 25 minutes of local news on this guy who threw a sandwich at a subway worker and got body cams and security footage and all this. And basically he was mad because the woman didn't cut his sandwich in half. Or would you rather we do cover that? We'll find some guy who didn't have his sandwich cut and cover it for 30 minutes. I think I know the answer to that question, but love you guys. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. It is now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro.